All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. I hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams are going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there on the channel with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And so yeah, I see we have a bunch of people already joined in here. And for anyone that didn't watch the Wednesday live stream, there's now these new community things, which I think are crowned based on how much like commenting you do, how much like gifting, super chats, all that stuff. They're just these little honorary crowns there. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy those as well. I don't know, YouTube is always trying new things. But anyway, I see Kevin, Lanswath, Anthony, B. Mitchell, and Chad, Vishal, Danny, Raphael, Caleb, Viewer, Nicholas, Linda, Fook, and Harsha. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. And so I see everyone says good evening. Lanswath says, my spots this week are a gray Ford Focus ST, a wine-colored Ford Model A red 32 Ford Coupe, a gray Subaru Brat, and a red Ford Mustang GT 350R. Very nice spots. Yeah, all cool stuff there. I honestly don't see many Focus STs around my area anymore. So that's honestly, like, to me, the one that kind of like stands out. The Subaru Brat also, I haven't seen one of those in years. But I miss seeing Focus STs around, and I feel like that's just something that, I don't know if they've just aged out and people have gotten rid of them, or they're just not popular around here anymore, or what the deal is. But also, Lanswath, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships here, and yeah, thanks so much for the generosity. Happy to see a bunch of people able to get those here. I see now Viewer also who's joined the live stream here. He's also got a membership here. So thanks so much for that, Lanswath. And now we have some more people able to participate here with that party answering. So thanks so much. And let me see. Anthony says, a lot of traveling this weekend. Saw a Cadillac Alante. Very nice. First gen Prelude and a super loud GT350. It sounded glorious. That's awesome. And yeah, also the Alante and the Prelude, those are sweet spots too. I love, those more obscure spots are really, really fun. So that's very cool. Lancelot says, also went to see the new Mission Impossible movie this afternoon. It's definitely a must see. Nice. Beth and I just started watching a couple of Mission Impossible movies. I finally got a little bit of work balance, life balance back. So I'm able to like not work till midnight every night. So that's nice. And so now we watched the first 2 Mission Impossible movies, and I've never seen them before. And obviously we want to watch through all of them eventually here, but there's some funny parts too where stuff just hasn't aged very well, and it's just like kind of funny, just some of the slow-mo shots in those early ones, and just some of the like 90s action movie cliche stuff. It's just kind of fun. So it was a good time. I'm looking forward to seeing the new ones. I've heard they have great car chases and some good action stuff, so definitely looking forward to seeing the rest. But I'm glad you enjoyed the new one, and looking forward to seeing it soon. Andrew Mitchell said, once again, having been working at a collector car auction, I'm cheating with my car spots, but the oddest duck there was a 1958 Studebaker Commander Provincial 4-door station wagon. Wow, in pink and white, with pink and white interior with sparkles in the pink paint. Wow, that's got to be a super rare spot. I don't know. You probably know better than I do, like how many of those are out there, especially in that combo. Can't be more than, a dozen, I'd say, probably, right? I mean, I don't know, but that's crazy. He says also, so how are there 4 thumbs up for the stream? Only 4 of us are on it, and I haven't done a thumbs up yet. Interesting. I don't know. Maybe someone hopped in, gave a thumbs up, and left. I think also you can thumbs up the live stream whenever I announce it. So like, I think it was about a little over an hour ago, I said I'm doing the live stream. I think people can pop in at that point and already give it a thumbs up. I'm not totally sure because I've never done it myself, but I think maybe that explains it. I don't know. B. Mitch also says the top sale was an 87 Buick GNX at $192,000 on the hammer, 207 plus with the fees, with 2,200 miles on it. Wow, that's crazy. And Yeah, B. Mitchell says, scary thing. I was expecting it to top 175 with the minimal miles and the soup du jour of the rapper crowd. Yeah, GNX is, I mean, I think there's always the whole G body community. I think there's always been a really big appreciation for those. I actually, way back in the day, did, the pull apart challenge thing with Classic G Body Garage. He has a YouTube channel just on G bodies. And there's a dedicated niche of people that I think have really been a very nice tight knit community and really supported those cars really well. And so hopefully, there's some of that that's really supporting us. And also to think, that and like stuff like the GMC Typhoon and the Cyclone, I, did a review on that. Those are really cool cars that I think maybe were underappreciated for a long time and are now finally getting the recognition that like, oh, these are things we should be paying big money for. Glad to see that it's getting the recognition it deserves. And Chad, thanks so much for stopping by as well. Danny says, hello, my rare spots were a first gen light yellow Chevy S10 pickup, a 96 Oldsmobile 88 LSS, the 3.8 liter supercharged, nice, and an 88 burnt yellow Dodge Spirit hatch, and a white 9th gen Civic hybrid. Wow, you are so good at spotting these really rare cars. It's impressive. You should start your own little car spotting channel, Danny, if you ever feel like it. Just pull out your phone, film the cool stuff you see and post it up. And I feel like that could be kind of a fun thing. That's what a lot of us, Shmi 150, I did a lot of car spotting too, back in the early days, especially before I could really drive a whole lot or whatever, or have very many cool cars at my disposal, like just filming the cool stuff that I saw. I did a lot of that even in college and stuff. So it could be a fun little thing if you're ever looking to do anything on YouTube yourself. Obviously there's pros and cons, but it could be fun just to share the stuff you see. Or even like, I think there's also just, there's some cool Instagram pages I follow. Like there's one that's called like the Unloved Cars of Colorado or something. And it's like mostly just like junky stuff that no one pays attention to. But then it's like, wow, that's like, a crazy Mercury Tracer with like, a really nice interior, still just weird off the wall things like that even 99% of most car enthusiasts don't care about, but that are appreciated by a few. And so it could be even fun for Instagram or something. Let me see. Caleb says, any cool news this week that I should look into? I was reading something. The one thing that I saw earlier this week, which I just thought was crazy, again, this is, we can talk about car news. I haven't looked at anything too closely in the past day or so, but the one big thing for me this week was the M2 CS, and the fact that the M2 CS, it's like 50 more horsepower, it's lighter, and all the usual BMW stuff. And I know CSs are expensive, but it's like $100,000 for a 2 Series coupe. If you want to have a bunch of power in an M2, you can do that in the aftermarket. Again, I know it's a collectible and all this, and it probably won't depreciate or anything, but to me, like I couldn't wrap my head around spending 6 figures for a 2 Series. I'm sure, again, they're all sold out, I'm sure, and people are gonna probably pay even over sticker for them, but like that was like the shocker for me. I'm like, wow, like it's actually $100,000. So that was, I think, the one crazy thing. Other than that, there's nothing else that sticks out in my mind. Oh, the Jeep, new Jeep Cherokee. They showed that off, which was a complete surprise. And the Jeep Cherokee actually looks good. It's almost like square headlights, not quite, because they do a modern little thing. It's got a little bit of a ring kind of look to it, but it is kind of like a squared off kind of ring. And I think it looks great. And they said it's going to be, have a hybrid version, gas powered. I think like most Stellantis stuff, we'll see, hybrid, probably plug-in hybrid, but definitely a regular hybrid and then an electric one probably for all of these things going forward. But it's good that they are doing the gas one, because I think especially for Cherokee buyers, that's going to be something that's going to be important. I think, I don't remember, I think it's still not coming for over a year, but it's nice, that we were able to see it and know, okay, this is coming, and people can plan ahead for that and wait for it if they're interested in it. But I think those are the top 2 things of the week. Let me know if there's any other stuff you guys saw this week you want to chat about. Always happy to talk car news in the absence of the weekly updates here. And let me see. I see everyone else saying hello here. Fuchs said the turnout on Wednesday was pretty good. Didn't expect for a midweek. Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised with how well that was received and how many people were available to hang out there on a Wednesday night. So, yeah, like I said, I'll be traveling here this next Wednesday, so I won't be able to do a live stream this week for that midweek thing. But the following week, I definitely want to try and do another one. It'll probably be an on again, off again thing. Is in the following Wednesday after that, I probably won't be able to do a live stream either. I might, but probably not. So, but eventually, once we get into the summer, I will make it a every week kind of thing, and that'll hopefully help build the viewership of that as well. People know it's always going to be most Wednesdays, but for the first few weeks here, it will be a little sporadic. But yeah, that was really fun to do, and I know even someone commented and said that they enjoyed it only being an hour long for the Wednesday one, so it was a little easier and less intimidating to go back and be like, oh, it's gonna be this super long video. I mean, an hour is still really long, but a little more palatable than like last week. We ended up going like 2.5 hours basically. So yeah, I think it's I'm really happy with the way that went. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it too. And let me see here. Vishal says the manual Versa is officially dead. The last 5-speed manual is gone. Interesting. I hadn't heard that bit of news. So Versa's kind of on its way out, I think, too, pretty soon. But I don't know if they've officially announced that yet, or if that's something that's been confirmed necessarily. But I hadn't heard about the 5-speed officially being dropped. That's a bummer. Yeah, it's. I'm sure like 5 people bought them, and they probably don't even like bother building them anymore. It was just kind of like this thing in theory that you could get, I'm sure. But yeah, it's cool they offered it till the very end, and it's a 5-speed too, which is so fun. A remnant of earlier times. Trucking Cargo, thanks for stopping by too. And Chad says, what are your thoughts on how manufacturers use cheats to get higher MPG/MPGE, etc. on different tests? I mean, they clamped down pretty hard on that after all the diesel emission stuff. But there are things that they do, and this is why it's not really cheats. It's just like they have had to tune cars to really hypermile, and this is why I complained about like the Golf R having this really slow downshifting transmission in normal mode, because the EPA testing that, and if you drive around like that, it forces you to drive like a granny. And as a result, you get fantastic fuel economy, and you get some decent numbers there. They get fined less or whatever, at least in Europe. And so that's, I think, what you really see. And so if you hop in a car and you're like, man, this transmission is just not responsive, it could be responsive. It's just that they probably deliberately did that. And that's why like a Golf R only really comes alive if you're in sport mode or you're doing the manual shifting. Then it's great and it's super fast and responsive, but it's not great in normal mode. I don't know of any other cheats as far as, I'm pretty sure all that stuff's illegal at this point. So I don't think there's any other workarounds aside from just, again, programming it to always hypermile. And then, that's, the beauty of the drive modes. But if you have any other examples that you're thinking of, let me know. Maybe there's things I'm unaware of that I'll definitely be interested to hear about. But Harsher says, my spot of the week was a baby blue C1 Corvette. My mouth drooled. Very nice. Yeah, I didn't have anything that stands out in my mind, honestly, this past week that I saw. Yeah, I didn't have any notable spots, unfortunately. But let me see. Raphael says, my spots were a black and white GT500 passing me on the freeway. Very nice. That's always a classic combo. And let me see. Viewers asking, how's the family? We're doing great. The daughter has been sick here this past week. And so I'm actually, you can maybe tell I'm a little bit sick as well. Kind of a little bit of a scratchy throat and itchy nose and stuff like that. But yeah, but otherwise, the family's all doing well. We had a fun weekend still, and hope you guys were all doing well too. And Chad says, saw a GT500 at a food outlet of all places. Interesting. Yeah, well, some of these people, you have the sweet car and you're eating ramen noodles, and but that's funny. Unless it's one of those, like, we have a few of those places where it's like commercial food outlet things where it's for restaurant owners to go buy stuff. I guess in that case it just not a lot of storage space for massive amounts of food, so that's kind of funny. And Kraken says, I was so ready to meet you this weekend. Hope your daughter's feeling better. Yeah, thank you, Kraken. As you can hear, I'm also struggling a little bit, so probably best we didn't meet up. I don't want to get you sick. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, Kraken was actually he sent me an email. He was in Pittsburgh here this weekend and just wasn't able to make it work out here with everything we had already committed to, and then just yeah, being sick and all that. So, but hopefully next time, Kraken. Hope you had a good time here in Pittsburgh. Hope you were able to enjoy and meet up with some cool people and. Yeah, have a good drive back too. And Trent Car Guy says, went to a car meet yesterday, saw a bunch of classic cars, including a Shelby Daytona Coupe and a first gen NSX. Very cool. Nice. Yeah. I feel like, so is the Shelby Daytona, you're talking like the old school one, right? Because there's also, didn't they call that thing in the 80s the Shelby Daytona? Like, yeah, I think maybe I'm thinking of something else. But there was like the Dodge Daytona, and I thought Shelby did a version of that. But I'm sure you're probably talking about the original classic. Um, and yeah, great spots there. And let me see. I think we got a couple of super chats. Sorry, I missed Chad. I missed your super chat. He says, "Any truth to the Brat comeback?" I haven't heard a rumor about Brat, and I haven't heard anything credible. Not sure where you saw that. I mean, it's entirely possible, and I've been saying for years now, like ever since Maverick came out, I'm like, why do we not have a new Baja? It just makes so much sense. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm filing that one away in the like logical things that Subaru should have done to print money years ago and hasn't done, so they probably won't ever do it. But never say never, I suppose. Maybe they'll come to their senses and do that because you could do it in so many ways. I mean, you could take Outback like they did for Baja. You could even go smaller and take Crosstrek if you really want to go crazy, or Forester, and just hack the back end off. Yeah, but I think another thing too with a lot of these things about this car coming back or that coming back. I think a lot of companies, I don't know this, but I feel like some stuff is already in the pipeline and it's going to come out, and these are decisions that were made years ago. But I think you may see some of the stuff that's being decided on right now with this whole wait and see pattern with tariffs and where we're going to build stuff and not having enough factories here in America to build stuff. And so I feel like we may see kind of a sunsetting of new car debuts here in a couple of years. Again, probably not this year, probably not even until maybe like 2027 or 2028, just because it takes so long to catch up on this stuff. But if everyone's like paralyzed in fear this year and no one wants to make a move, then they're going to delay any of these new things they want to do as well, until they have more certainty and they know what to expect and what to plan for and all that. And so since they don't have that, I think that you could see a time period, just like we see supply chains and stuff that also lag. But if you stop things, you might have a gap for a little while before you see new stuff introduced. So we may have, at late 2020s, a gap where we just have not really anything new and just everything, just current model lineups. Maybe new generations of stuff that you have to keep going and you have to keep competitive. But as far as like new things that aren't just a redo of, something with a, existing model line, you might not see a whole lot of that. That's just me spitballing, but, just something else that dawned on me the other day. I'm like, we may actually have a little bit of a gap in new debuts as a result of this stuff too. And AMCB, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, seen an M5 wagon with a custom wrap, which I was like, how did you already get one? TTRS, latest gen Nardo gray, and a Scion TC 10.0 edition. Very cool. And yeah, I think M5 wagons are just now starting to get delivered, because I mean the media fleets have had them for several months now. So usually media fleets most of the time start to show up around the same time that they start to show up at dealers. Sometimes you have like a month lead tops, but by now I think the top, BMW people have probably started to get their M5 wagons. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it's already, already out there, little by little. And thank you so much for another super chat as well, AMCB. And let me see. Other comments and questions here. So let me see. A Platinum OG says, "Hey Matt, have you ever had a go in a Noble? I really enjoy bombing around in my M400. That's awesome. I've never driven one. I had one person a long time ago offer one to me, but just I never was able to get around to reviewing it. But they seem really cool. I've never driven one, and I'd love to try one out someday. Seems like a wild car though. In a lot of ways, one of those old school kind of cars you really gotta drive it yourself, and no assist really, but I'm sure it's a lot of exhilaration, I'm sure. And Kraken says Kraken is getting mad looks with the new hood on her. Took 7 friends for a ride and they all were shocked. Nice. I'm glad they had some good fun here this weekend. And Chad says, driving home from work today, I saw an awesome new Bronco and it's retro trim from Alaska. A lot of military here. The guy saw me looking and he had the biggest smile. Nice. It's awesome. Yeah, Broncos, anyone who's interested in Broncos, apparently they're sitting on dealer lots in pretty big numbers. You can probably get some real good deals on Broncos right now. Finally, after years of markups and all kinds of shenanigans, I'm glad that it sounds like now you can finally negotiate with a dealer pretty strongly on a Bronco. And it could be a good karma moment if you had been turned away for a Bronco in the past or had dealers play games with you and now the shoe's on the other foot. And you're able to, say, remember when you wanted 10 grand over on that Bronco? How about 10 grand under? Middle finger, but yeah, it's interesting how things can change. Kraken says Ioniq 9s are starting to hit dealers. Not 100% sure on the design, but it's all right. Yeah, I actually, I think I saw one at the auto show last fall, maybe. Or no, because I think maybe I saw it at the New York Auto Show, yeah. But I haven't seen one on the road yet, and yeah, haven't driven them yet. I probably will get one in the press fleet eventually, although that's a vehicle I'm not going to go out of my way to review because EB9 just did terrible numbers for me, and I don't expect Ioniq 9 to do any better, especially these days. So that's probably gonna be one of those cars I may put off. I would like to review it personally because I'm thinking it'll be great myself, but I just don't think it'll get any views. But yeah, seems like it's pretty cool though. I mean, Hyundai does great stuff. I have an Ioniq 5 right now actually for this week's press car. Still so good. Really, really love it. I may be making some progress on talking Beth into it whenever the Mach-E lease is up here next year. Because I've always preferred the Ioniq 5, and if it were me, I probably would have taken it over the Mach-E. I really like Mach-E as well. It's been a phenomenal car for us, and I have really no complaints aside from the fast tire wear and the rear brakes being poorly programmed as far as the wear on them. But other than that, it's been really good. But Beth was like really impressed because now it finally has a rear wiper and just the quality of life things that it has, the little things like the Mach-E, doesn't have. For example, the 2025 Mach-Es have improved on some of these things, but like the Ioniq 5 having a closing glass roof, the Mach-E, it's just always open. So having that in the Ioniq 5, having cooled seats, which, Mach-E is getting for 25 as well, but we don't have that. That's a nice thing on these. And a few other little things too that we liked. But anyway, so we'll see, but it'd be cool. I love Ioniqs. I think they're great. And let me see. Dylan says there's an M2 CS already for this generation. Man, time flies, doesn't it? Yeah, I know. It does seem like it's been, not long since the last one. But I think they're also rushing to do the special editions because they know they're money printers and everyone wants them. So it's like, well, why not? It's a win-win. They make a ton of money and everyone's happy. At least everyone can buy them. But Daniel Real Texas, thoughts on a used Quattroporte GTS versus an XJR, both recent gens with some miles on them. That's I honestly, it's kind of funny. I know someone that has both of those cars, and they'd probably be, so they don't have the Quattroporte anymore. They used to. I reviewed his Quattroporte actually. If you look up, I did a Quattroporte review. I think it was a GTS. Check that out if you haven't already. The XJR, I think he has an XFR actually, so close, not quite the same, but I think personally, I don't know. I mean, you're kind of rolling the dice with both of those. But my buddy's like XFR has been flawless, it seems. At least last I talked to him about it. Don't quote me if it isn't. But he seems to say that it's pretty solid and doesn't deserve the bad rap that it gets. So Yeah, I mean, he has a public Instagram page, so I don't think he'd mind if I shouted him out here. But I think you should send him a DM if you're on Instagram. He would be a wealth of knowledge for you. His Instagram username is Alex Kean, Kean. I believe if you search for that, send him a message, tell him I sent you, so it doesn't seem weird. But he is probably the most qualified person in America to answer that question for you, in my opinion. So, because he's owned, both kinds of cars and would have really good insight for you. They're both fun. Obviously, they both sound great. Both are quirky in their own ways and all that. I'd probably go Jag personally, but because I think I'm inclined to agree with him. I think the Jag's probably going to be a little bit more reliable, possibly, than the Quattroporte. But yeah, both are super cool, obviously. And kudos to you for considering both of those. That takes, honestly, bravery and, standing out from the crowd with something different, I think is really commendable. So hopefully it helps you a little bit. Let me know if you're able to connect with him, or if not, I can connect you guys as well, because I think he'd be a really big help for you. And Kraken says, "Hey Matt, can I send you a new photo of Kraken to post as member car of the week update sort of thing?" Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't had a member car of the week in several weeks now, so I'm always happy to do more of those. So yeah, send me a picture and happy to share it. And thanks for sending. And Lancelot says M2CS price tag equals left leg, right arm, kidney, firstborn, soul. Right? I know it's really crazy how these prices have gotten. I was actually working on an article for Car Buzz. You'll see here probably in the next week or so, about just talking about the muscle car wars. And I just to research it, I looked up how much all the muscle cars cost just for the regular V8 versions back then. It's like, man, Mustang GT was $33,000 in 2015 to start. Same for Camaro, basically. The Scat Pack Challenger, was like 40, but even that these days is sounds cheap. It's just crazy. Obviously, again, everything else has changed, and we all just have to change our brains for the inflation component. But I know a lot of people haven't had their wages keep up with that. But yeah, it just, man, the times, it makes me feel old, because I'm like, oh, I remember in my day, and it's it was only 10 years ago, but man, things have changed so fast. Anyway, Vishal says, took the Passat to Discount Tire for tire rotation. There was an old couple with an early 2000s Odyssey. You don't see them much anymore. Being a 2000s kid, it was nostalgic to hear the classic Honda startup. Nice. That's cool. Yeah. My fun little anecdote about the old Odysseys. My uncle had, the first gen Odyssey we got here in the States didn't have sliding doors. It was just a regular 4-door thing with a third row. It was kind of, it didn't have the rugged thing, but it was kind of like a crossover before 3-row crossovers were super common. But my uncle had the Isuzu Oasis version of that. I don't know. I have no clue how he ended up with the Isuzu version instead of the Honda, but it was identical. It just had Isuzu badges. But I took many rides in that first gen, Isuzu Odyssey, thing. Yeah, that's another brand that is still strong in other parts of the world, but they had such promise, and I don't know why they didn't stick around longer and why people didn't buy more of them. But yeah, good stuff. And Andrew is asking, is CarMax good at test driving? I've never visited a CarMax, so I don't know. Maybe someone else can weigh in on that. And let me see here. Notorious CRG, thanks for stopping by, and thank you for the super chat. He says, Matt, follower fleet responses. Me, EV6, GT, LC500, Bolt EV, Odyssey EXL. Anyone else responding with theirs? 01 reviews, first week, 200K for 1,064 horsepower. Yeah. Yeah, as far as the fleet responses there, I mean, EV6 GT would be a lot of fun. And I really like the EV6. I think the only thing I love about EV6 is that it doesn't have a huge moonroof. You can't get the big glass roof. It's just a regular small moonroof in those. Maybe the 25's been better, but yeah, all those cars. So that's your fleet though, is the EV6 GT. I think is, sorry, I always take forever to figure out comments. But that's a solid garage. I am so jealous of the LC500. That's the dream. Yeah, the 01 reviews, unfortunately, was not invited to that, and hoping to get one as a press car. But Yeah, that's a car that though I really wish I would have been able to drive it on track because it's so fast. I'll certainly have a crazy acceleration, but that car is so fast that gets borderline hard to review on the street safely if I actually want to show off even a remote little bit of what it can do. I mean, what 0 to 60s? What do they say? Like 2.5 seconds or something? Like, if I do an acceleration for you guys and it lasts more than 2 seconds, like I'm probably breaking the speed limit. Like it gets real tricky. I think, like my angle of that review is obviously I'm not going to be able to talk about how it stacks up to other sports cars because I'm not going to be able to approach the limits. Not even, I'll be even driving, my usual back roads at my usual pace and stuff is going to probably be 3/10 for that car, so like that's going to be a kind of car where I think that review, I'm going to have to angle it as what is this like to daily drive? What is this like to live with? What is it like to drive at normal speeds on normal roads? Because I believe the 0 1s, maybe they drove them on the street. I didn't watch any of them yet, but I think that was all track stuff. So that's going to be my angle is like, does this drive like crap on the street? I'm assuming it won't, but that's going to kind of be my only hope of, of reviewing that. And again, do the tiny little quick accelerations, but it's kind of hard because, if I can't keep my foot into it, like it's going to be a very short, like, woo, end. And that's it, and just have to like, you can't really exploit that stuff as much. So I'm bummed I didn't go on that trip. Yeah. And I'm hoping maybe they do another track event at some point where I can, actually spread its wings a little bit. But yeah, it's it's I'm sure an amazing car from everything I've seen so far. And thank you so much again for the super chat. And Chad, thank you for a super chat. He says rugged 3-row with sliding doors to be money. That's actually a good idea. I mean, because no one's really done a wholehearted rugged minivan yet. Like there's the Woodland edition of the Sienna. I don't think it even has extra ground clearance. It's like, a roof rack and different color wheels or something. So yeah, I think that would be something cool. I don't know who would do it first, but someone should do it and give it a try. Maybe that would help turn around the reputation of minivans a little bit and make it a little more appealing. I don't know. And Notorious, following up, says, got to hear your acceleration response. Low twos for 0 1, according to video reviews I saw. See the Jason Camisa Haggard video. Yeah, I did see on his little reel of it beating a Ruelto in a drag race, which is, pretty crazy. 100 to 160 mile per hour in 6 seconds. Yeah, see, that's going to really suck to review on the street because I am not the type of person that treats the street like a racetrack. So my 0 1 review is going to probably be real boring. I mean, Chevy thankfully is really nice. They always send me stuff, so I'm sure I'll take it and review it. But don't expect it to be any better than any of the other reviews out there. Those ones will all be much, much better of actually showing off that car. Yeah, I didn't hear that stat though. That's nuts. That is, yeah, that really gets crazy. That kind of groups into like, the Hummer EV doing his 3 seconds or to 60 and stuff where it's like, should we sell this stuff to people who don't have any training whatsoever? It's kind of terrifying to think about, because cars are just getting, this is the most lame thing for a car enthusiast to say, but I think cars are getting too fast in some ways. Because I'm just, there's some people that have fast cars that, you see them. They're the ones that make the highlight reels of all the idiots that wrap stuff around, telephone poles. But like, there's got to be a point where we're like, okay, like we need to stop doing, stuff this fast because it's going to actually turn these things into real missiles. Like it's kind of just insane. But anyway, Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says prediction on when the USA will have BYB. I think you mean BYD possibly if you're talking the car company. And I see Notorious's response. I don't know, how that's going to ever play out because, I mean, the initial 100% tariff was put in by Biden. And I think, among political divisions we have, I think that's one thing that most people are pretty unified on, that it's probably not a good idea to let them in because they will decimate the auto industry. And auto industry is a really big, important, industry for America. And, I'm all for, free market and just whatever, but like there also needs to be regulations and, make sure there aren't unfair advantages and things like that. And so I think BYD borders on unfair advantages just because of, some of just the stuff. I mean, again, they're doing the most impressive EVs right now. They're the pioneers that are, bringing about all these breakthroughs, and embarrassing every non-Chinese brand, honestly. So I mean, amazing, amazing stuff. But at what cost as far as you bring them to America? That's the thing. You know, Even if our cars are worse and more expensive, if that employs, millions of people and that's very important to our economy, you know, is that something that we just deliberately handicap ourselves on because it's best for the country? I mean, that's I don't have all the answers there. I'm not going to pretend like I, have a full fleshed out rationale for my opinion on it, but yeah, that just seems like something that both sides are kind of against, and I can kind of see that. I've also talked to a lot of my car review buddies that do film the Chinese stuff and are excited about it and think that it should be sold here and think that it's BS that it's not available, and I can see their points of view as well. um so that's something I think time will tell, but I don't envision that changing anytime soon unless, I mean, again, Trump is very unpredictable. So if someone gives him another Air Force One tomorrow or something, maybe things will change. Certainly I think, right now it seems like things are pretty hostile with China, so I don't expect it anytime soon. But if they set up a mobile McDonald's in China, invite them over, maybe we'll have BYDs, in a week or two. I don't know, but it's I wouldn't expect it though anytime soon. And Chad, thank you for another super chat as well. He says, could BYD scare the traditional manufacturers to innovate? I mean, they are also already innovating. I mean, Jim Farley daily drives an Exomi, whatever the word number letter jumble thing is for that car. He's really impressive though. He doesn't want to give it back. Like he daily drives a Chinese car and doesn't want to ever get rid of it. So they know the pressure's on, they know the heat's on, they know. I mean, he every day experiences a car that is better than the ones his company makes. So they definitely are innovating as hard as they can. But again, the reason why BYD has innovated so fast is they had massive government backing. And, you saw how that went here in America. We tried to, back all this innovation, and it all, is getting teared up. They're trying to get rid of the, federal tax credit. They're trying to, they killed all the charging infrastructure grants and all this stuff. And so they're doing their damnedest to undermine all that stuff. And China didn't, and China continues to invest in, the government, is very heavily invested in that. And so it's one of those things where money does that. Money is how you get to that point. And, China has invested that and they understood the importance of that innovation. And here in America, we're still not wrapping our heads around it. And we still just want to be stuck in our ways and stick to the same old because that's comfortable and nobody likes change and all this. And so as a result, we'll be behind. We were already way behind China, and we will continue to be in the future as far as cars and everything else that runs on batteries and electricity and everything else. So we're completely fumbling the ball and losing the game there, and we're doing it to ourselves, despite everything, our best efforts. And so there's other inventions I'm sure that'll come out. Maybe Americans can innovate in other ways, but we're also having a huge brain drain. All the scientists are being poached by other countries because they're not able to speak freely here and everything. So we're having a ton of the best minds leaving America. So that's not going to be great for innovation. Car sector, not so much. It's mostly in regards to academia and other, sectors, but a lot of that stuff, like some of the solid state batteries, like MIT is developing them. If MIT is going to be the new witch hunt after Harvard or something, then like that's going to be, negatively affecting those kinds of innovations. So I don't expect any kind of innovation from America for the next 4 years or more. And that's the kind of thing that's also hard to recoup and bring these people back. And these things are, decades in the making with a lot of this innovation and stuff. So, you undermine that stuff, you probably never going to get it back. So, yeah, I don't think you'll see any American manufacturer. I mean, they'll have, innovations in their batteries and advancements. And we're seeing, Mercedes doing solid state batteries. They're actually the first one to put an actual, vehicle on the road with a solid state battery. So we're going to see more of that for sure. And we're going to see, things continue to evolve, and a lot of these Chinese companies will still be happy to be suppliers for, the American companies. But I think what you will see is, the best case, if you're hoping for Chinese tech over here, is that they will, like Ford or somebody else will say, instead of trying to beat them, let's join them and just buy platforms, label them as, whatever brand, bring them over here as American cars, and and do that. I mean, we saw this, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, where it's like the Japanese are kicking our butts. Well, we can't come up with anything that's competitive, so we'll just buy it and slap our badges on it and do partnerships. I think you could see a lot of that. We already see that in China with, the Western companies that aren't competitive in China anymore are now taking, Chinese platforms and putting their Mazda stuff on it and putting their, Audi stuff on it or whatever, and doing all these things. And I think you could see a lot of that here as well, of, eventually it's going to be one of those things where like no one's doing it. Then once someone fires the first shot and someone does it here in America, then everyone's gonna have to do it, because everything's gonna again be obsolete so quickly once that you break that seal and open that door. So I think that's the kind of way. I don't think we'll ever see those brands here, but I think we could see their tech, again, if a car company decides that's the best way to go about competing in the future. And Veslin, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, I think anything faster than, let's say, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds is too fast for the road. 5 to 6 is good for most uses, and you can push the engine here and there. Yeah, and the other thing, too, that I think is actually in enthusiast's best interest is that you don't want cars to get demonized any more than they already are. And, all it takes is a couple. I mean, we already see, all this stuff all the time with, Hellcats were, I think, another one of the big ones where, it was, you put 700 horsepower in the hands of people that, could afford $50,000 cars. Like, that's something that you never had before. And now all of a sudden, I guess unless you do a ton of mods, but like to just be able to walk into a Dodge dealer, drop 50 grand, 10 years ago, and get yourself a Hellcat or whatever like that. I think those types of things, when you have cars like that, it can, again, just kind of give a bad name to everyone that likes cars. And, it can just be like, well, all these cars are too fast, we need to limit them. And then that's when you get government intervention. You get the, the Karens or whatever that, start to lobby and start to, try and clamp down on this stuff. And, I mean, that's, we have like, there was like 55 mile per hour speed limits for a long time. And there's all these things, and if it's one of those things, like, you don't want to make too much noise, you don't want to attract too much attention to yourself, because if you do, and the whole industry gets put under scrutiny, then, you start to, have other people interfere, and then, it's bad for all of us. So, I'm excited. I'm not saying this to, be upsetting about 01 or anything like that. I think these cars are fantastic. I just, again, I just wish we had better licensing. If you have, a license that has shown you are capable of handling something like this, then by all means, drive it on the street, and that's fine. At least I know it's in capable hands. But if, anyone who thinks they're a race car driver and, got lucky enough to earn enough money to pay for something like a 01 can walk into a dealer and have, something that fast, it is a little bit of a scary thought. So, that's the only thing I'll say is, like, laying low as an enthusiast is oftentimes in our best interest to do. This is why I actually really love EVs, because you can go really fast, but people don't at least know or see or hear you. You're not disturbing the peace. You're not making a big scene about it, but you're still having your fun. I'm getting my little woohoo giggle and like having my little fun, but I'm not ruffling any feathers. And as a result, no one's really coming after, those kind of performance things, because, it doesn't really bother them unless, again, you're launching into crowds or something. But like, aside from the Hummers and things like that, where there's the weight involved, no one's really too upset so far about, stuff like Ioniq 5N, which is, the prime example. It's like it crackles and pops on the inside. No one hears you on the outside, but I'm having my own little fun, concert of car sounds on the inside, having a blast, and, no one even does a second look, But anyway, let me see here. I know we've probably gotten a little bit behind on member questions here, so I want to make sure I don't fall too far behind here. So I'm going to do just for in the meantime, just prioritize the members, and then if you have a non-member question, maybe re-ask it here in a little bit once we've caught up. But I just don't want to fall too far behind here. So let me see. Trucking car guy says Wednesdays work for me since I'm off from my current job on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Nice. Yeah. So I'm going to keep trying to do the Wednesdays. I think that I know there's also suggestions about a Friday one. We'll try the Wednesdays and see how that does. If more and more people do want the Friday, that's something I can experiment with as well. But I think most people like having kind of like a midweek thing, a little bit more space instead of having Friday and then Sunday. But maybe if there's a time, another opportunity where like I can't do a Sunday live stream, but I could do a Friday one, maybe that could be a fun time to try then and see how that goes. So maybe that's something I'll keep in mind for the future. And Harsha says the transmissions on these Hondas are not good. If you're talking, I'm not sure which one you're talking about there. The ZF 9-speed I know in some of the Honda uses is not great, but some of the other Honda transmissions seem to be pretty good from the ones that I've seen and come across. But maybe there's some stuff I'm out of the loop on. And Raphael says, I missed the first Wednesday. I was working and couldn't join. Totally understand. Yeah. And I know it's not going to work for everyone. So it's all good. And like I said, we'll maybe experiment with times and days and stuff. But I was happy everyone was able to join though. Let me see. Harsha says, what grade is your daughter in? She must be excited for summer break. So she's still in preschool. She just turned 4, so won't be in kindergarten until not this fall, but next fall. But yeah, she's excited for summer break. She loves school though, so she's actually a little bit bummed about that ending. But we'll be doing other fun stuff, going to the pool and all that. And so she's still having fun. She just loves life and it's just absolute joy there. You see Kraken says, all good, your health is more important. I appreciate that, Kraken, and let me know next time you're in Pittsburgh. And Lance Watt says the Shelby version of that 80s Dodge, that's what I was talking about earlier. I see Grant says, took your advice, bought a Giulia Quadrifoglio, spent a little bit more than I wanted, but so far makes a great daily to complement my GT3. Thanks for the advice, Matt. Thanks so much for asking. I think it was just last week, right? And so I'm glad you enjoyed the Giulia here so far, and I hope it treats you well. And that's awesome. I'm so happy that hopefully unfortunately it didn't have a review of a Giulia Quad, but at least hopefully maybe the Stelvio Quadrifoglio video helped you a little bit there. And that's awesome. I'm also jealous. That's got to be an amazing daily driver in addition to the GT3. You have a nice garage set up there, so that's awesome. And have a blast. And so happy to help. Let me see. Trucking Car Guy says, the 60s one thought it could have been a recreation, though it could have been a recreation. Yeah, there's a lot of the clones and stuff too, but I'm not sure how many of the originals are out there. And Zachary, thanks for stopping by. He says, yo, I saw a white 1985 Lotus Esprit Turbo this week with a big guy crammed inside. He certainly didn't fit, but he still looked so cool. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Man, I haven't seen an Esprit in forever. That's really a cool spot. And that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping by, Zachary. Let me see. I see also B. Mitchell had the answer there. He said Shelby Daytonas, they only made 6 of them as race cars in 65, so probably a kit car. Super Performance is a great one. Otherwise, 80s Mopar K car based Shelby Daytonas are more prevalent. Gotcha. Thank you for being the automotive encyclopedia there, B. Mitchell. And Nicholas says, got an HKS exhaust put on my car on Friday. Really loving it. Great sound. Nice. HKS is so legendary. It's awesome. Brings me back to my tuner days. So glad you're enjoying it there. Let me see. Chad says, we had a car show by my job and all the teenagers are asking about older JDM cars to aspire to. What would you suggest? BRZ, Infiniti G, Celica, etc. There's a ton of stuff, it really comes down to personal preference and, do you want rear wheel drive, front wheel drive, all wheel drive, lots of good stuff. BRZ, I really loved my BRZ. And I think that's a really good car for people to learn rear wheel drive driving dynamics on. It's, very user friendly. It's a good, like, my first rear-wheel drive kind of thing. And really great. I think Miata is obviously always a fun choice, always the answer to some people, and I agree most of the time too. Miatas are great. And yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff really out there. So it's so hard to just pick just one or just a few. But yeah, there's I'd say like Celica. The other thing about Celica, if you're aspiring to that, is at least around here they are rare. I actually did see a Celica this week, so maybe that could be my spot of the week. I did see the last gen Celica before they went away here this week, and I was really surprised to see it. But they're like, I hardly ever see Celicas. I think they've mostly rusted away, or maybe they're in other parts of the country. But yeah, so many good things. I still am a JDM fan at heart. That's like my I guess what I grew up on, and what I still, it's like my first love. And maybe Gaming BH says Doug has a pretty good take on the EV credit possibly going away. Less incentive for domestic brands to develop vehicles that less people will buy. Meanwhile, Chinese EVs will advance and overtake ours. Yeah, it is less incentive. The tax credits, I think, yeah, it's one of those things, where I can also see both sides of the coin on that as well. I think a lot of people have merit when they say, like, the electric car should stand on their own 2 feet, and it should be this thing that shouldn't need to be incentivized. If it's a good car, people are going to buy it either way. And I think that is certainly, a valid point. It's just that, it just, no one's looking at the big long-term picture, of batteries will reach cost parity with gas stuff pretty soon. I mean, like, I think before everything got screwed up here this year, I can't remember if it was Morgan Stanley or one of these, like, financial firms was predicting supposedly that we'd reach cost parity probably by like mid 2026. And you're seeing, more and more competitive pricing coming out for EVs, and so we'll get there. And so I think, the tax credit was never meant to be a permanent thing. And that's another thing that, like, people forget. They think it was like going to be forever. It always, in the law, I'm pretty sure, was like set up to sunset in, I think, 2028 or something like that anyway. And that it was always just supposed to be a little thing just to kind of get it off the ground, and help people in the early days here, and get it to a point where, again, then once that cost parity happens, then you don't need the incentives anymore. But without that support, again, things are going to do their own thing. Like, like I said, there's already huge other investments in charging infrastructure. Walmart's putting up thousands of chargers at their stores and stuff like that. So, like, even without the federal support, it'll still happen. It's just going to happen slower. And that's the thing with the whole China debate, is like they're going at super fast speed. You pour money on the fire, and you really speed that up. That's kind of what we were trying to do, again, until everything got undermined. And so as a result, like, yeah, we're just going to be behind. We will slowly but surely get there, whether we're talking about the charging infrastructure or we're talking about, the cars. But, it's just going to take more time. And that would have been accelerated with the extra money. And so we won't be competitive. And that's something I've already, made my peace with it. Like, we're always going to have crappier cars than China now going forward. And it's just, one of the things of living in America, along with a whole lot of other stuff that, is nonsensical, but it's just the American way, to be old fashioned and behind in many cases. But anyway, Zachary says, I had an idea that could help do something you don't have time for and make it work. You have the usual Sunday stream, and then Wednesday's a chill hangout stream where you play car video games, tax deductible, guilt-free gaming. That would be fun. Yeah. To kind of, sneak that in as like my own, like, little fun time. I mean, that's something I've talked about in the past, and something that I would like to do. I've said, like, I have Gran Turismo 2 over here, that I would love. I still have my old memory card and stuff. I'd love to boot that up, and I got to get a PS1 first, but boot that up and, just see all my old cars that I built back then, and all the just the nostalgia trip. I haven't played Gran Turismo 2 probably been at this point, I don't know what, probably close to 25 years. So that would be really fun. So Yeah, I'd like to do that. I have no clue how to do like an actual gaming stream or anything like that. I have a brother-in-law that is more knowledgeable on that, so he could help me with that, but that's definitely going to take a little bit of work initially, but definitely something I'd like to do in the future. I also just love interacting with you guys and chatting because this is almost like a car meet in my mind of just like, us talking cars and hanging out. So I do really like doing that, but yeah, I mean, and this is something I've even envisioned if we do go to more live stuff, and if this is how YouTube kind of continues to evolve, is maybe that could even be like the third live of the week. Is maybe we have a midweek chat, Sunday chat, and then I pick a different game, and once a week we do a different game or something like that, and go through a bunch of vintage games. Yuri actually from the Straight Pipes did that, where he was streaming a bunch of the old car video games, and he did it for a little while, and then he quit doing it. I don't think I got a ton of views, but I don't even care because you're right. Like if it's tax deductible and I can just have some fun playing games, and maybe some of you would enjoy it, that's something I'd totally be up for sure. And honestly, just even keeping up with new games, I'd love to play all the, like there's a new Test Drive Unlimited game. I don't think it's out yet, but like that, I always loved those games on Xbox 360 back in the day. So there's all kinds of stuff. I have no shortage of stuff to do, I'm sure. So I'd love to try that sometime. And let me see. So let me see. We already answered that one here. Harsha says cars like the Tesla Plaid and the Lucid Air Sapphire also have this problem, right? They're so fast, they're not fun without putting yourself and others in serious danger, right? And I guess with EVs, that is the other point. Yeah, I didn't talk about kind of earlier, but you're right. Like with the EVs, like that is the only kind of fun you really have for the most part. And so whereas in the 01, you can at least enjoy good sounds without going insanely fast. But with those, it's like that's the only fun is just the acceleration. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the car world kind of develops. I'm like, one final thing I'll say about that. I'm a little worried that cars get so fast that is one of the excuses they use in the future to bring on the autonomous cars and force us into them, because they say, well, we can't trust people anymore because they're too fast, they're too unqualified, they're too irresponsible. So let's take that away. In America, that probably wouldn't happen because, again, we'd start a war over it. But, in other parts of the world, I could see that kind of being, kind of a bargaining chip, I guess, for lack of a better term, of just like, well, this is something we can't trust people with anymore, so we take it away. Like a lot of other things, where it's like, okay, well, we can't have them do it anymore, so we just, do it for them. So that's kind of why, again, I think we really got to be careful as a community of enthusiasts that we really keep our head down and don't piss too many people off, with this stuff, because again, I just feel like that could be something that gets legislated away eventually. But let me see. Vishal says, with the RAV4 having a GR Sport trim, is it time for a GR Sport Sienna? I think GR Sport, all the things, like, why not? If you have, especially, I mean, the Sienna desperately needs more power. So, if it has the same plug-in hybrid setup as the RAV4, absolutely. I don't know why they haven't done a plug-in hybrid Sienna, because Pacifica still has that whole market to themselves. And I don't know why. But yes, I think that would be great to see. And yeah, I mean, they already kind of have, the XSE and the sportier stuff. I think makes a ton of sense. And Notorious CRG says limiting the driver and buyer pool is a thought bandied away in the videos I saw for the 01. So that's interesting that people discussed that already. Yeah, I think it's going to be more and more of a discussion here in the future. And sorry, I missed all the super chats. Man, YouTube is just screwing up tonight with not letting me know about these. I apologize, Notorious and Chad and Jordan. But Notorious, thank you for another super chat. He says Micah Muzio's channel includes his wife and daughter. Yeah, they do great videos. It's just something that we've chosen for our daughter to not put her online, just because of a variety of reasons. But so yeah, but it seems like Micah's fantastic, and they do a really good job with their stuff. And I see, yeah, also the follow-up question, sorry, I just saw now. Would we consider that? Yeah, and it's just for us, it's not for us. And that's a personal thing, so I won't, elaborate too much on that. But yeah, just for us, just we're just choosing to keep her offline. Um, and eventually, if she's older and I'm still doing this in 10 years, and she really wants to be on the videos, or I mean, eventually she'll, if this is still a thing, and if she's remotely interested, like she'll inherit all this stuff eventually. And it can be her channel in 20 years, 30 years, or whenever I retire. I don't know. I guess hopefully I got more time in me than that. But in 50 years, if she, or whatever, wants to be the co-host or something, that could be fun. But while she's a kid, and probably while she's a minor in general, at least, again, unless she really, really wants to do it whenever she's older. But for now, yeah, we're keeping her offline, and definitely off the YouTube channel, because I've seen how YouTube's so tough, and also just, yeah, not great with comments sometimes. Obviously you guys are all fantastic, but even just the dad bod comments I get recently, just people that commenting on my body, something I've never had an issue with, but now it's like, wow, like I can see how annoying this can be for girls. I get a tiny little taste of this, and it's like, yeah, not fun. So definitely just avoiding putting her out there. But Chad, thank you so much for super chat. He says, bring back crash test dummy videos. Yeah, that's who is that was there a game at Crash Test Dummies as well? I think there was that. But yeah, I love the IHS videos too. All the crash testing is brilliant. And that's actually the other little thing, in regards to like the discussion of cars being really fast. IIHS, which is the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, they do all the crash testing and all the top safety picks and stuff. They have started in some of their like press releases and some of these things, whenever they crash test a lot of these sportier vehicles, like the last time they did the muscle cars, I think, they've really started to, talk about like car companies still market speed and performance, and they're like, speed kills and all this. And obviously they're taking a really extreme approach to this stuff, and they're just completely anti-speed, and they probably love everything to be autonomous and do 55. But there is already this like little bit of this kind of a movement of why are things this fast? Why are car companies allowed to market performance? Why are car companies allowed to have commercials where cars are going really fast if you don't want them to go really fast, in public and stuff? And just those types of things that are already kind of rumblings, among people that make policy and stuff, is why I'm just kind of like, maybe they first outlaw commercials of cars going fast on streets, even if it is a closed course or whatever. And then but where does it go from there? So that's why I'm again, it's kind of tread lightly. And Jordan says your wedding ring looks like a car tire. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan. Yeah, it's yeah, I guess I've never really shown it. Let me see if I can get it to focus. Whoa. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, maybe I'm too close. There we go. Yeah, it's titanium, which is one of the fun reasons why I got it 10 years ago now, basically. But yeah, it's been a nice ring. It's a little annoying because like if I use like a bar of soap, it'll get caught in the little like notches there, but it does kind of look like a car tire. I also, like, when I initially got it, I was pretty into Iron Man, and to me this kind of looked like Iron Man-esque in some ways, and that's kind of also why I liked it when I first got it. But yeah, you're right. Actually, I never put together that it looked like a car tire until you said that. But you're right, it does. I've had this thing on my finger 10 years now, and I've never put that together. so thank you, Jordan, for that. It always just looked like a brick wall to me, kind of, in a way, or something like that. But anyway, Chad's also quoting Clarkson here, saying speed doesn't kill, suddenly becoming stationary. That's what gets you, was the end of his quote. Yeah, that's absolutely it, Chad. And thank you for another super chat. And yeah, Clarkson. By the way, we've been watching Clarkson's Farm little by little, the new season here, which is really funny. It's not really anything about cars, but it's a fun show nonetheless if you still enjoy hearing Clarkson be Clarkson. And let me see here, other member questions. So where were we here? So Um, I guess we've caught up pretty decently on member questions. So Vishal says, someone drives a final gen Celica at my work. Pretty interesting to see it since they've mostly disappeared. Nice. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear it's not just me that doesn't see Celicas anymore, but yeah, that's cool that your coworker drives it. That's I yeah, cars like that these days are getting really old. So I really commend anyone that keeps something that old on the road. That's always commendable to me. And Darnell says, "Good evening, Matt. Hope all is well. Enjoyed the BZ video this week. Thanks for watching it, Darnell, and thanks for stopping by. And yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that one. It's really so improved. They did such a good job. It's finally a competitive, EV, and I think it'll sell a lot better now with all the improvements. We'll see. Excuse me. But Raphael says there's room for both of us. Give people great electric cars. Give me an NA engine with a great exhaust note. Right. Yeah. And yeah, I think we'll have to see how things change in the next few years and how everyone agrees we should all move forward, even beyond the next 4 years. I think, I've always said, I said this years ago, that I think Toyota has the right approach right now of, offering something for everyone. Obviously, for some people, because of their living situation, EVs are just not going to work, for a long, long time. And, for other people, they're totally fine with it, and it's something they can do today, So I think meeting everyone where they're at and giving everyone that choice. And now, with the hybrid thing, there's no drawbacks. The fact like now RAV4 is all going to be hybrid is huge. And I mean, actually, spoiler alert, but I just wrote an article for CarBuzz. It's going to be it just should have gotten posted up. I'm pretty sure like an hour or two ago. so if you get bored listening to me ramble here, go to CarBuzz. You can read my newest article. I talk about the gigantic impact that going all hybrid for RAV4 is going to have on emissions reductions. Just taking almost 500,000 cars a year that they sell and having all of those immediately get at least 9 mpg better. If we go off of the old RAV4 fuel economy, we don't have mpg for the new one yet, but not forcing those people, but basically being like, hey, look, like if you want a RAV4 now, you got to do hybrid, and everyone gets 9 mpg better. Like that is an enormous amount of cars, an enormous amount of gas saved every year, and emissions reduced. And over the life of this generation of RAV4, I mean, that's an enormous bite out of the gas appetite that America has here, and then combined with everything else, I mean, that does huge environmental good on its own while still having a gas engine, still having that comfort factor for everyone. So I think that that's the way to do it. And I think that's why Toyota has said all along, like, we are going to actually, be better for the planet in this way. And, the less battery materials they're using with their primes, or now the plug-in hybrid ones, they can make 8 primes with, the same amount of batteries they do with one BZ or whatever. And, again, but then still having the BZ for people who do want to have that fully electric thing. And so I think, that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's, what you're going to see. Now, I don't think that should last forever. I think we're going to have to get to a point eventually where, we do, go fully electric. But I think, you're still always going to have the used stuff, the collector stuff, and literally all the cars that are still on the road or still around that have been produced in the past 125 years that are still going to be able to be, driven and stuff. But yeah, I think for the next decade or so, I think the Toyota's got the right approach, and you also have to see how it goes from there. And Harsha says it's not just cars; electric vehicles in general are stupidly fast. Yeah, I have seen electric bicycles doing 50 to 70 mph and have acceleration times. That's crazy. I hadn't heard that, but that takes some bravery to be doing that much speed on a bicycle. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy enough on a motorcycle, but at least motorcycles have stability. I mean, there's no way even 50 miles per hour on any kind of regular bike tire can be anything other than sketchy. That's wild. I mean, at least, the thing with bikes is you're only putting yourself at risk, really. You wipe out on a bike doing 50 or 70. I mean, yeah, you can still probably do some damage to a car, but it's probably not going to be catastrophic. But just because bikes are so light, even those little e-bikes, but yeah, still a risky thing as well. And Michelle says, with Volkswagen planning hybrids in the next couple of years, is a Jetta hybrid a possibility? With how good the current one already is on gas, a hybrid variant would be crazy. Yeah, I think that's something that we probably will see more of. And yeah, I think they'll probably work their way down. So I feel like Jetta could be one of the last ones to go hybrid, possibly. But they're probably seeing all the hype that Civic's getting, and obviously Corolla's had for a while and all that. So I'm sure it's something they would like to get in on. I just don't know. I'd have to look at what they have in Europe and stuff because I know they have mild hybrids, but I don't think maybe China's got a plug-in hybrid one or a hybrid one. I don't know. But regardless, yeah, I'm sure that's going to come eventually. And Jay says, what do you think about Lucid Gravity? It's really cool from what I've seen so far. I was at the reveal whenever they pulled the sheets off of it. I guess that was like almost 2 years ago now, or a year and a half. Haven't driven it. I haven't seen any on the streets around here yet, although I think they are delivering to people. But yeah, Gravity seems really, really cool. I hope it does well for Lucid. I think Lucid's doing phenomenal advancements as far as, talking about innovations. They're doing some of the most innovative EV stuff outside of China, and I hope that they continue to thrive so they can continue that innovation. And I hope Gravity does well. And I think it's, not perfectly timed, but, hopefully they can get those out fast enough for, capitalizing on a little bit of maybe the last Tesla defectors, although that's probably going to simmer down now that Elon stepped away. But, I think a lot of the damage has already been done, and there will still be people trying to get out of their Teslas, forever now, but, until they get rid of them and going for stuff like the Gravity. So I think it's, hopefully it will do well for Lucid. We'll see. And let me see. So we caught up on the member questions here. So I'll, circle back here to some of the other non-members. So I see Willie Goat says LC500 video doing well. Good to see. Yeah, that video did really well. It's so funny. LC500s always seem to do pretty well for me, aside from the hybrid version. Which, fun fact, when I was doing research this past week for the One Carbos article, Lexus sold 18 of the hybrid LC500s last year. 18 compared to like 1,500 of the V8s or whatever. Like, tiny microscopic amount of the hybrids. And the hybrid one's actually really nice. If you want good fuel economy, but you just want really good looks, I think it's really solid. Like, I think they deserve to sell more than 18 of those. But that's all they sold. But yeah, I'm glad that video did well. That's why I never turned down an LC for my own personal reasons of just being selfish, but also because they actually do very well. And I'm happy to see that. Thank you for everyone that watched that as well and made that a success. But yeah, that one was definitely good to see that did well. And Raphael, thank you so much for super chat. He says people should relax. Things will go fully electric, but there will be used gas cars for 30 more years at least. Oh yeah, I mean, there's still people driving around Model Ts, so unless gas, turns out to be something that's not profitable to sell anymore, in the far off distant future, we still are going to have synthetic fuels and stuff too, so and that's Porsche's angle for synthetic fuels the entire time. They're like, we want to just support the 911 community and keep all these old 911s on the road. And that's what the synthetic fuels are for, so companies like Porsche are thinking about, even if we do go fully electric someday, how do we continue to support these vehicles, continue to keep them going in a sustainable way? And that's, but yeah, I mean, 30 years is conservative. You're right. It's going to be way, way beyond that. And so there's no reason to fret, but people love clutching their pearls, and, fear mongering on social media is very profitable, unfortunately. So that's the kind of stuff that gets people riled up and gets votes and all that. But anyway, Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, ever do a motorcycle review? Harley EV bike. Yeah, those are cool. Harley is really struggling right now. It's a shame. But as far as motorcycle reviews, I've never done one. I did a vlog like probably 15 years ago, almost at this point, when I was kind of trying to dabble in that on the channel very, very briefly. I did a vlog, I think, where I was riding around my buddy's like front yard with his dad's old BMW motorcycle that was super heavy, super like beat up and rickety and stuff. That's the only time I've ever filmed myself being on a motorcycle, I think. I think that's the only time I've actually ever rode a motorcycle. I think I've like sat on a couple and stuff, but I've never even like ridden on one on the back with anybody or anything. Um, Motorcycle reviews, people have brought this up in the past. I have no interest in motorcycles. I don't know anything about motorcycles. I have heard it's the ultimate adrenaline rush if you're an enthusiast. I have no doubts about that. I'm sure it is a whole nother level of fun and engagement and really cool stuff. But for me, it's just too risky for me personally. And my holdup has always been I can be the best rider in the world, but all it takes is one idiot that's looking at their phone or something, and you're done. And that's kind of the problem. If I'm gonna have idiots around me not paying attention and doing who knows what, like I want to have metal and airbags and crumple zones around me, and that's just me. Obviously, again, people have higher risk tolerances than I do. I'm very much a wuss when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, that's why I'll never go on a motorcycle personally. I'd love to try dirt bikes someday. I think, again, in a closed environment like that, I actually, if I had the money and the time and all that, I could see myself getting into dirt bikes someday. But that's, yeah, again, I don't know if I'll ever have enough free time to invest in something like that. And that's also, yeah, just it's a little bit more of a higher buy-in as far as buying a bike and all that and a trailer and the whole thing. But I think that could be the only thing I would like to try as far as two wheels someday. And thank you for another super chat, Jordan. And Chad, thank you for another super chat. He says, LC500 platform, are there any possible variants? No, it seems like LC500's journey is probably just about done. I mean, they haven't said anything yet, but I think, between that and IS500, those are the last two things, with that old Lexus V8. And there's not going to be anything, beyond that. We're going to get the homologation GT3 racing car that Toyota's working on. They have to do street legal versions of that just to race it. And so we'll get that. And that, I believe, has a V8. I think it's a hybridized V8 in that. But yeah, like there was even supposed to be an LCF, and there was prototype spied with huge wings on the back and stuff. And then that got canceled for some reason. I don't know why. But there's no other variants on the horizon. There's no new generation on the horizon, I don't think either. Again, I think that GT3 car is going to really kind of take its place in a way. And so we'll see, when that comes or how long LC lasts. But I hope it lasts as long as possible because, man, that thing still amazing. Sorry, I'm getting stuffed up here a little bit. And yeah, still just such an amazing car. Anyway, Jordan, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, a Plymouth Prowler review would be money. I'd love to do a Prowler. Yeah, maybe someday if I ever make my way up to Toronto, I can review Yuri's from the Straight Pipes. Because, yeah, Prowler would be so fun. Honestly, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's much of a car to drive. It's boring, 4-speed automatic, I think, and those things back then, V6. But it's cool. It just would be fun, and yeah, I'd love to review on someday. If I ever get my hands on one around here, I'll certainly take that opportunity for sure. Yeah, let me see. So a few more member questions here. So Harsha says another issue with EVs is the weight. Not only are they fast, but their weight can wear down roads, and the road infrastructure is not designed for these tanks with 4 wheels. True. I think that's a problem we have with trucks as well, though. I mean, pickup trucks are just growing in popularity so fast too, and especially heavy duty trucks, which are also, in some cases even heavier than a lot of these EVs. And so I think it's bigger. Everything's getting bigger. Everything's getting heavier. Everything's getting more high tech and fully loaded, and just has a zillion things in it. And so I think that's, but I don't think that's a unique EV problem. I think that's also a truck problem. And so I think that's, again, trying to figure out, are we going to regulate anything at all, or is it just going to be, no regulation whatsoever? I don't know, but that's one of those things where I think regulation would help, of like, capping the weight of all vehicles, or capping, or, again, forcing you into a different licensing class to understand the physics of 6,000 plus pounds or whatever the case is. I think Obviously we'll never do it in America because it's the Wild West over here. But like I'd like to see that. And I'm hoping maybe we see that in other countries at least, where they can kind of recognize, that there needs to be different training and there needs to be different things accounted for, in this age of growing vehicles. But that's one of the things I also love about Europe is that like a lot of their roads are just too small to accommodate a lot of these vehicles, and it's just really the geography caps these things from getting out of hand. And in America, we don't have a whole lot of that. So, that's why like they could have giant vehicles. And this is kind of the whole thing, with Trump being upset. They don't sell, Hummers in, London. And it's like, have you driven through London? Have you driven through like, the little UK B roads? I have, and I felt like it was enormous driving a mini Clubman on a little British B road. Like I still had to like almost drive into the grass to let someone pass by. Like, and so like those types of things are why I love driving in Europe, because you have to have small cars if you, want to not be hating your life every day driving anywhere. And so, that's just, I think there's that other big difference with infrastructure and with all that we just don't have that cap in America. So it's just go nuts and just figure it out after the fact, but anyway, Vishal says, I always get jealous whenever I see an LC500 on the road, especially a convertible. I hope to have one of my own someday. Yeah, you and me both. I hope you achieve that dream too, Vishal. And hopefully they keep churning them out so there's as much used LC500s out there as possible for all of us someday. And let me see. Harsha says probably once self-driving cars are proven to be safe, or when people are more skilled, then he can do motorcycle reviews. Yeah, that's if I'm driving a motorcycle around a bunch of autonomous cars that are 100% safe way off in the distant future, I would probably feel safe at that point. Yeah. But yeah, I still think truly autonomous cars for everything everywhere, like widespread, is going to be still a long time. Like beyond, I'd say at least 15 years, maybe more, but that's the soonest I would as far as like actually widespread. And even that's, I think, cautiously optimistic, because you look at like, again, the average age of a car on the road is 12 years old. So even if everything was perfectly autonomous tomorrow, you got to give it 12 years, and that's assuming it's all affordable and cheap, which it's not and won't be for a long time. So, whenever this stuff finally comes out and is actually fantastic and is widespread, then tack 12 years onto that before it actually becomes like, pretty common and majority of the vehicles on the road. So we got a long time for all this stuff. And the same thing goes for people worried about EVs taking over or whatever. Like, tack 12 years onto it for these things to become affordable used cars for the average person, so anyway, Robert, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, love your show, bro. I still have the Eco Stang at 16. It's my baby. Any recommendations for similar car and engine? A 4-banger turbo won me over. Thanks so much. Love, bro. Thanks so much for stopping by and for the super chat. So as far as suggestions for you, I mean, if you really enjoy that, I don't know if your EcoBoost is a manual or if it's an automatic, but if it's an automatic and you're good with that, the new Mustang would probably be a really great choice. They've made some nice improvements to the engine since 16, adding the port and direct injection there to it, and the extra power. We got this RTR version that's going to be coming. That's going to be an actual like factory built RTR thing that'll kind of take the place of the performance pack as well. So there's going to be some other things like that to make further enhance it. But if you're happy with it and you like that combo, I think sticking with it with a new one could make sense possibly. Beyond that, I mean, there's a lot of good 4-cylinder turbos. It just comes down to if you want rear-wheel drive still or not. Obviously, a lot of people, everyone get your shot ready here. I love the GR Corolla, and that is I guess it's a 3-cylinder turbo there, but kind of boosty turbo kind of car. That is one of my go-to picks as far as that goes. But really, if you want the best 4-cylinder turbos out there, then you're gonna probably go for hot hatches these days. because obviously Camaro's not a thing anymore, and Challenger's not going to have a four-cylinder, that's for sure. So, or Charger, I mean. So, and there's really not a whole lot of other things. I guess you could go like BMW 230i. That's maybe a fun choice. Or go M 240i if you can jump up to that one. Those are great. M2 has a six-cylinder, so that's probably, if you're sticking with a four-cylinder, I think. And also M240i, I think, is six-cylinder, right? So 230 though is still great. It's still a good amount of punch, I think. So that could be cool. You could probably actually get a really good deal on a four-cylinder Supra if you're into that. That B48 motor is great. And same as the 2 Series. But, that's probably, another oddball choice, but it could be really fun too, although it's not as much room as you're staying. So if you're liking, having some elbow room and, some cargo space and stuff, maybe Supra's not the best pick for you. But, that's another one that jumps in my head. I'm trying to think of others here. Like there's Audi TTs, things like that. They're you have to buy used because they're not new anymore. But there's those types of things. There's probably some other ones I'm blanking on here. But and if you want something that's more practical with four doors, I'd say you go like Stinger GT line. Had a really nice at the end there, the 2.5-liter turbo 4 with 300 horsepower. Great Grand Tourer, if you can find one of those used, or Genesis G70 has a great 2-liter turbo on that's pretty good. And I'm trying to think of others. That's probably all my best recommendations off the top of my head. Really, it's like if you want a really good four-cylinder turbo, I recommend Civic Type R, Integra Type S. Again, GR Corolla for the 3-cylinder there. Golf R, is great. All those kinds of vehicles probably be the way to go. And thank you so much again for the super chat. And Chad, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, Volvo sedans look so nice. Why are they not popular? I think it's just not for everyone. Everyone likes different things. And I think for some people, it maybe is a little too bland or too boring or something like that, possibly. So I think that's sorry, everyone's saying there it is as far as the drinking there. I think that's probably part of it. And Darnell, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. And thanks for all your support, of being a member as well as the super chats here. Really appreciate that. And thank you so much for the generosity. And let me see here. So other member questions. Let me see. Darnell says, if anyone wants to start riding motorcycles, please take the MSF course and get your license properly. Yeah, definitely good advice. There's actually right near me, they always have like an open parking lot. It's like every Saturday or something. They always have a motorcycle licensing course, and there's always like a bunch of people lining up there on their motorcycles, looking awkward, learning, and it's kind of fun to drive by and see on the weekends there. But yeah, I definitely agree. And let me see. And Michelle says, saw a reel of a new Gen SQ5 cold start. Sounded super nice and looks better than the standard model. Nice. Yeah, I actually will be reviewing the SQ5 this week. So stay tuned for more on that. And yeah, I'm going to be doing an Audi event this week where I'm going to have A5, S5, and then the second day is going to be Q5 and SQ5. So look for all those. You already know if you saw the member schedule here for June. That's going to be coming here in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'm excited to try out all the new S models, especially. But Audi's always done really good stuff, in my opinion. I'm excited. This is actually my first Audi media drive as well. So that'll be kind of fun. Yeah, so that's going to be, I'm curious to hear that cold start in person soon. And let me see. Harsha says, what is the Honda Accord Cross Tour? It seems very odd. It doesn't feel like an Accord. It was their attempt at a Subaru Outback kind of, in a way, and one of those quirky things that Honda tried back in the day that I think they kind of don't do as much of, sadly, these days. That I think was a good idea that just was maybe poorly timed, or it's just at that point it was too hard to take on the Outback. I think that was, I don't know why that failed though, because I think it should have done better than it did, honestly. And let me see here. Other non-member questions. Anthony says motorcycles are their own animals, too much risk, and he's a family man. Yeah, that's part of it. And he says I was going to, but can't trust that Long Island, New York drivers, and a Hummer in London would take up all the lanes of the road. Right. Yep. And Danny says my dad's first car was a 1988 Buick Skylark. Had the Iron Duke 2.5 liter inline four. His parents bought it for him when it was 6 years old for $4,500 in 1994. My dad said it was a nightmare for maintenance. Yeah, I've heard those Iron Dukes are not a good engine and not a great car there. That was kind of from that malaise era of just not great stuff in GMs. I mean, there's some cool ideas, and they had some really cool stuff. Like they had the Buick was the first thing to have the CRT touchscreen in the 80s. You had a touchscreen in a Buick. I think it was the Riata, if I remember correctly. And like I swear that those are the types of things where like I think GM actually has a crystal ball stashed away somewhere. Like they literally did a touchscreen 10 years before anybody else. So GM has their moments of brilliance, but yeah, the Iron Duke was not one of them, I think. Let me see. Anthony says keep the EcoBoost running for Robert there. Yeah. I mean, if you're happy with it, stick with it. That's for sure. Especially these days with car prices and interest rates still not being great. If you can not buy a car, I mean, this again, it's terrible for my channel, but if you don't need to shop for a car, don't shop for a car. Yeah. It's, I still would recommend hanging on to stuff unless you're wanting an EV, because the EV deals are fantastic and probably not going to last with these tax credits going away sooner or later. So EV deals are great, so go for that if you're going for an EV. Otherwise though, I think you're better off just sitting on the sidelines and keeping your car going, because it's just still not a great time to buy, in my opinion. Although the things could always be worse again with tariffs and stuff. So maybe buy now if you must, but I still think if you have a car you think can last you the next 4 years, I'd just stick with that. And Danny's more about the car here with the Skylark. He says timing belt broke at 70,000 miles, wreaked havoc on the engine, smashed head, bent piston rod. First head rebuilt. Second head rebuild was when the water pump went, sold it then, and used that money for a down payment on his brand new at the time 1998 Chevy Cavalier Coupe. Nice. And I've heard the Cavaliers are a little bit better there, so that's cool. And thanks for bearing with me there, Danny, with the question and re-asking here later. Let me see. Philip says Elantra N is a nice 4-cylinder turbo. That's another one I was forgetting. Yeah, for Robert as well. You're right. I just had an Elantra N. I'll be posting that here soon too. Elantra N is fantastic. I wholeheartedly agree. If you want the best performance value, Elantra N is still the way to go. 35 grand, even with tariffs, at least for now. 35 grand, unchanged price. Elantra N. Absolutely buy those while you can get them. Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says off topic, but phone case industry. As far as money, I don't know if you mean like as far as like me reviewing phone cases or just the phone case industry in general. I have no clue. I don't know anything about that world, unfortunately. I know a lot of people do make good money doing accessory reviews on YouTube here, because it's all about those affiliate links and plug-in shopping. YouTube keeps saying all the time how like, oh, you should add more like products to your videos so you can tell people to go buy all your products and stuff. And it's just like, I don't want to become, QVC. It's just for me, it's just not something I'm super into. If I'm doing something where I can actually provide value for you guys, or provide, good recommendation for, a car wash soap or something, like that's one thing. But these people that just like do videos on accessories and random garbage parts just because they want people to like click on their Amazon link is just, again, one of those things that I should probably be doing for my own financial well-being, but just have not gotten to that level yet. And Chad, thank you for another super chat as well. He says, keep up the used reviews, maybe a Viper next. Viper would be fun to do someday. We'll see if I ever get around to reviewing one. But I am hoping to review more used stuff in July, I think is when, because June's pretty busy for me, and I got a bunch of press cars and stuff still, but it looks like July is going to open up a little bit more. So I'm hoping to do some more used stuff in July. There's a few cars I got my eye on that I hope for my own selfish purposes, I hope they don't sell so that I can review them and get around to them here, in a month or so. But there's some good stuff I got my eye on to hopefully do used reviews on. So, um, fingers crossed it works out. We'll see. But yeah, I definitely want to do more. And also, July is probably good timing because if that's when some of these other tariffs are going to kick in and some of the, locked in pricing. I know, like I think Hyundai committed until I think the end of June. I think same for Ford. So if we start to see real tariff pricing start to kick in pretty hard in July, then that could be a really perfect time to say, okay, I'm doing mostly used stuff now because all this new stuff no one can afford. I mean, this is why, like, even like if I don't want to review another WRX from Subaru because now base WRX is 39 grand. Is anyone going to buy that? And can I review it and say this is even remotely a good value anymore? Like, no, it would just be me bashing it the whole time because it's just too expensive now. But that's going to be the case for so many things. So it's like, yep, I'm going to just pivot off into used stuff. And let me see here. Um, and yeah, Lukey's asking if this is really live. It is. I am here hanging out for another about 25 minutes. We do these here every Sunday. And welcome and thanks for joining. And let me see. So B. Mitchell said, yeah, Riata had the touchscreen. It had, I had an 88 Poncho Bland AM with an Iron Duke 2.5. That was the least of its problems. Nickname was the POS. Nice. That's funny. Man, yeah. I know there's so many of those things. Like my dad had a Pontiac Astra in the late 70s, I think, that his dad like really wanted him to buy, so he bought it. And he's like, that was the worst piece of crap he's ever had too. Like there was one time he was driving home from work and it was a manual and he put the clutch in and his foot literally went through the floor. The clutch pedal like went out onto the highway. So like, I mean, all those things just rusted to pieces. So I'm sure that was just like a rust thing because it wasn't like brand new or anything. But yeah, just so bad. I mean, he had so many issues and I mean, like I think I've said in the past on live streams, like the amount of times that me and my family were stranded on the side of the road or in a parking lot because our Ford Tempo wouldn't start or died on us. The 1988 Ford Tempo my parents had was just total crap. And that burned my dad for American cars forever after that car. He went to Subaru and he never looked back. He's been Subaru faithful ever since. And yeah, I think they did a lot of damage back then, and there's people that will never consider, any American brand ever again as a result. And let me see. Rob says, I love my Elantra and it's been a blast to own. I'm glad you still have yours, Rob. You're still enjoying it. And yeah, they're so good. Stay tuned, Rob, for my updated video on the Elantra N here. Nothing's changed for 2025, but they said, hey, we'll send you another Elantra N. And I said, sure, sounds good. Because I will happily drive that around for a week. And, it seems like stuff like that, continues to get good views, even if there's nothing new to talk about. It's just like me in a fun car, new video. And, that seems to be enough, to get some views. So, and I see B. Mitchell said the Astro was literally a rebadged Vega. Yeah, just terrible car. I'll see if I can maybe get some more stories out of him at some point about it, but that's the only one I remember about it. But yeah, the interesting car. And viewer said 33 grand performance pack with nav with 34,000 miles. Clean Carfax. What do you think, Matt, for a daily driver? So I'm guessing you're talking about Mustang. Yeah, okay. 2020 Mustang performance pack. I think you're probably performance pack. You're talking PP1 like GT, or are you talking performance pack EcoBoost? I don't know which of those two you mean, but so yeah, it's hard to say without looking at it, and checking it out and looking at the Carfax to see like, were the oil changes done regularly or is it just, no accidents? But I haven't looked at Mustang pricing recently, so I couldn't tell you if that's a good price or not. The only thing I can say is, again, for this one article I worked on for CarBuzz, I looked at current like used pricing for 2015 Mustang GTs, and those are like hovering around like 25 and change, and that's a really solid deal, especially these days. And it's still S550, still really great. 16s are better because you get CarPlay in those. as a retrofit. You have to do like a software update. 17 is when it came standard from the factory, but yeah. So the 15 has the old infotainment, which isn't great. But you're talking 2020s here. So with 2020, I would have to look at the competition to see what the other, what pricing's out there, to say whether that's a good deal for you or not. But yeah, yeah, I'm not even gonna try and wager a guess because I don't want to be wrong. But to me, that sounds a little high for a 5-year-old EcoBoost. Okay, it's a GT. Sorry. Okay, for a GT, 2020 GT. Okay, that sounds pretty decent to me for a GT with performance pack and the nav. Yeah. So I'm guessing you're talking premium, so it's got the leather and all that too. Yeah, I haven't looked at 2020s in a long time, so I can't say for sure. That sounds pretty good to me. Because I think I've been seeing bullets recently go for like high 30s now. And some even still cracking to 40, but so I think 33 for what is essentially a bullet, with the same kind of performance pack and all that. That sounds good on the surface. Again, just would have to look at the other ones out there. He says purchasing sight unseen, possibly. Yeah, I mean, in that case, you definitely want to make sure you get their maintenance records, make sure that, you know, yeah, sight unseen is a little scary. If you can get someone to inspect it, or even if anyone that can just like look at it for you and, just kick the tires, start it up, stuff like that, just, help a little bit. But, yeah, if that's the best deal and you have to do it sight unseen, as long as it doesn't have any obvious signs of abuse or, a ton of mods or questionable visual things that would make it, seem like it had a tough life. Other than that, yeah, hopefully that'd be a good buy, but hard to say 100%. And Rob says a clutch to the floorboard as well and stuff. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And Austin says, did we discuss the Throttle House guys taking over the Grand Tour? We did not. I saw that. I think that's still a rumor. I don't know if it's been confirmed. I don't know anything about it. I just saw, I think Yuri posted about that. And I know nothing about the train guy that supposedly is going to be with them. That's I know nothing about that person. I'm sure they obviously have a huge following. I'm sure they're very hilarious or whatever. But I just don't know why these car shows always insist on having a non-car person. They always got to bring in some other like celebrity or some other person. And I don't know if it's maybe like the funniness of like, oh, this person's clueless or something when it comes to cars or what. And maybe this trained person is super into cars. Again, I know nothing about him, so I don't want to pass judgment. But it seems like with Top Gear America, they always have to bring in the celebrities. They always got to bring in like established view people, and like you can still have like someone that's like quirky and nerdy. Like, I mean, they could have hired Doug or something. I mean, maybe Doug, might not have wanted to or something, but or a Doug type to do, that kind of nerdy thing if that's what they're going for. And there's other even YouTubers I think that could kind of fill that kind of a role as well. But I mean, I'm sure again we'll wait and see how the chemistry is between all three of them, again, if that is truly what's actually happening. And if it is, though, I mean, it certainly fits. The Throttle House guys, I was able to meet them. I actually met them twice. I met them when was it? I met them on the big Toyota drive for Land Cruiser and all that stuff. That was, I think, about a year ago now. And I mean, they literally took a Land Cruiser out for the weekend into the wilderness and destroyed it, which is a very Top Gear move. It's frowned upon in the car reviewing world, but again, that even at that point, they were already on another level, as far as doing things outside of the box and not adhering to the same restrictions that the rest of us have to adhere to. But yeah, so I mean, I think that probably makes a lot of sense. And yeah, we'll see how it goes for them. I wish them all the best. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see, if it actually does well. And because the hosts they can only do so much, because we see this with Top Gear UK. Chris Harris, amazing. And the guy from Friends, I'm blanking on his name right now. But great people that are into cars and all this stuff. But if it's still just kind of chasing this phantom of what used to be with Top Gear and stuff, it can still just be a really hard hill to climb. And um, it is going to be a big challenge. But if I was offered the gig, I certainly would have taken up the challenge as well, because it's like, who doesn't want to be Top Gear? I mean, that's what we've all aspired to be, and hoped that someday we get that show as well. So they got that dream. And I hope it does well for them. I don't know if they'll keep doing YouTube videos or what. I'm assuming they probably are just going to stop that, but we'll see. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I just hope they have good producers, good people that know how to source the right cars, set up the right stuff, good script writers, all that. I think is really going to be important as well, in addition to the chemistry. Let me see. Darnell says Magna Ride would be nice for that price, but even without that, it's in the ballpark. Okay, well, thanks for weighing in there, Darnell, on that. And see, Michelle agrees about the pedal. Darnell says probably 27 to 34, depending on features. I appreciate the help. And Harsha says around the same time the Pontiac Astra came out, you could have gotten a Toyota Corolla. You're right. Yeah, and my grandfather had some questionable car recommendations over the 80s and 90s, especially. For my dad and for his siblings, as far as the crappy cars he recommended for them. Meanwhile, he did have like an 80s Honda Accord that he loved. So I don't know why he was not everyone to get Pontiacs and stuff when he had a or whenever he had a Accord that was great. But yeah, I agree. Like back then, I mean, all the Japanese cars did have big problems with rust, but so did the American stuff. But yeah, absolutely. I think there was some price premiums though with some of the Japanese stuff. That was, I think, what kept a lot of people out of that. But if you were, yes, definitely buying for the long haul and you had the extra money, the Corolla was definitely the better buy for sure. And I see, Darnell says the 2018 S550 is the sweet spot. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I obviously still love the Bullet, and it's peak Mustang for me. Let me see. C6Z07 says, didn't get invited to the C801. Hope to see it on the channel this year. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. Unfortunately, was not invited, and I will be reviewing it. I'm sure I'll probably get one as a press vehicle at some point this year. It's just like I won't rehash everything I said earlier, but it's going to be a hard car to review on the street and do it any justice. So it's not going to be the best review on a 01, but it'll show what it's like to actually live with it on the street, and how it feels on the road. Because I don't think that was really covered a whole lot, if at all, in the other track, reviews. So, hoping to, give a little bit of different perspective on it here, and I'm excited for it. I'm sure it's going to be wild, and it's going to be a ton of fun. But that I'm going to have to be so careful with that thing, just because it's so fast. And let me see here. I see Abby Mitchell still loves his Mustang, which is great. And Darnell says, when the opportunity presents itself, running that Coyote up to $7,000 RPM, getting on the interstate is magical. I know it is the best. Such a great motor. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, films, why does the US love British accents? As far as like even with Throttle House and stuff. I think, although I think only the one has a British accent, right? I don't watch a lot of Throttle House, but, I think, especially when you're talking about either cars or you're talking about something where intelligence is a perk, I think, to me, just British accents always sound more intelligent, most of the time. And I think there's that like air of sophistication about it. So I think, it elevates that presenter whenever you have that accent in a way. But yeah, it's a good question. I'm sure someone's answered it much better than I have, and there's probably videos and papers and essays and books about it and stuff. But yeah, I'm sure. To me, I think some of it's just the sophistication, possibly. But yeah, let me see here. So Harsha says, other quirky Japanese cars are the first gen Acura ZDX. Yeah, same thing as the Crossover there, and the Prius V. The V was a good concept, a bigger Prius with a bigger trunk. I would love to have one if they made a new one. Also, I love the different previous variants like Prius C. Yeah, and I actually see a decent amount of Prius Cs around here still, and even the V. I actually, funny thing, I rode in a Prius V. They have like a little jump seat third row. I don't think I rode it. I think someone else did. that was with us. I can't remember. I think it was when I was at SEMA one year or something. But like an Uber driver picked us up in a Prius, and I didn't know the V had a third row. Maybe it was just an option or something. It's a tiny little jump seat of a third row, but it like did have it. And for Uber XL or whatever, it's great because you can say, look, like you can all squeeze, and you get the bigger fare or whatever. But it's still really good on gas and all that. But yeah, I'm kind of a little surprised they haven't grown the Prius family now again because of how they're just exploding with hybrid growth and stuff. I'm assuming they just figured it made more sense just to do the other models instead. But I think there's still room. I think they could totally do. Maybe Prius C is a little harder to justify because again, small cars just don't do well here. But especially Prius V, I think they should definitely bring that back. And viewer sent a link to the car. I appreciate that. So yeah, I will check it out and give my thoughts on that. Once I get the email here, and I'll check it out and I'll send you an email here, tomorrow or something. But yeah, I hope it goes well for you if you do decide to go for it. And fingers crossed, keep us updated on how it goes. And let me see. Okay, Darnell talking about the B Mitchell's GT there. And Joe, thanks for stopping by as well. And let me see a few other non-member questions here we can maybe get to. Scroll up if anyone's been waiting patiently and is still hanging around here. So where were we here? See if I can find a few really quick, and then I'll check back for some more member comments. But Gary says, what are you driving these days? I've been a subscriber for over 10 years. I can't believe your daughter is 4 now. Yeah, it's crazy. And thanks so much for being a subscriber for a decade. I really appreciate that. I currently have a Fiat 500e. It was just a car I needed because I figured it would be good to have a backup car. I don't need a car most of the time because I always have the press cars. But having my own car, I thought was a good thing to future-proof myself in case I do decide to kind of get away from press cars a little bit eventually and do more used cars. This kind of gives me that ability. And also just so that whenever I don't have a press car, because there are sometimes gaps where I don't have one, it allowed me to, still have transportation and not just be relying on being a one-car household, or saying yes to press cars that I shouldn't be saying yes to just because I want to have transportation. And instead just really sticking to being picky about press cars and just turning down a lot more stuff. So that's kind of part of it. The Fiat's literally $130 a month with zero down. It was just like all taxes and fees included, $130 a month for the lease on the Fiat. So, and I really love that little thing. You can check out my video on it. I just posted that. I got it back at the end of February. But yeah, there's that. And then, Beth still has the Mach-E. That's got another year on the lease on that. And then we might buy it out because it'll probably have some equity in it the way things are going right now. So whether we keep it much longer beyond that or we just flip it, I don't know. We've discussed various things. It'll come down to how our money situation is next year as well, because I think the Mach-E buyout's like 20 grand, which is really appealing, and it's also appealing because we did the Ford options plan for that, which is basically like it's technically a balloon finance thing, so it's not technically a real lease because it allows us to get the tax credit back when you had to buy to get the tax credit. So it gave us a tax credit, but we can still walk away from the car like a lease at the end of the period. And we still had a mileage cap and all that. So, but with that, we can buy it out. But so when we got it, I think that the interest rate was like 2.25% or something. And with the Ford options plan, at the end, when you buy it out, you have the option to buy it out through Ford for the same interest rate that you locked in 4 years ago, which I'm like, man, well, that makes like 100% sense to, take a used car loan for 2.25% or whatever. Now they force you to do a 3-year term, so it's a little bit of a shorter, finance term. So it's going to be, a little bit of a higher payment there, as far as that goes. But, just like, yeah, we're probably going to buy it out. And again, unless the value just goes through the floor on that, but I don't see that happening with tariffs and stuff. So, I think we'll probably buy it out, and then we may actually just even keep the Mach-E and just not get something new because we're really happy with the Mach-E still. And let me see. Also, I see Gary also said, I got a GTI 380 mat. Awesome. Well, congrats on getting that. He said, I think they did that with the Hugo, and the GLI was made in Mexico, but it had longer gears. Yeah, so yeah, the GTI, I'm glad you got one of the last ones there, and I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, I wanted to review one last GTI with the manual, and they just never had one of the 380s in the press fleet. I think there may still be a couple sitting on dealer lots. I might try and hunt one down. But like it just, yeah, they just didn't really promote it much, and didn't put them in the press fleets for some reason. And let me see. Travis also says, I'm having trouble deciding on a 24 4Runner, a new one, or waiting for the 2026 model. Thoughts on the new engine? The new engine's great. I mean, I don't know if you've driven the old 4Runner yet, but I mean, the new one's just a gigantic leap forward in every single way. For some people, that's a bad thing. If you're someone who wants to have an old feeling Toyota, that's been part of the charm of 4Runner for years now, and is a charm on its own. And I can understand why some people like that tried and true nature and that old school kind of vibe. So it really comes down to personal preference. I don't think there's really anything to be gained by waiting until 2026 or the 2026 model, unless you really like the new color and you're getting the TRD Pro version. But other than that, I wouldn't wait. If you want the new one, you can probably get a better deal on a 25 anyway right now. So, and I personally, if it were me, I'd rather have the new one over the old one, because I like having newer technology, newer safety, better drivability, all those things. The new engine's great, it's so punchy. They handle so much better now. I mean, I could go on all day. And I did a review on the new 4Runner where I do go on at length about all that if you want to see that. But yeah, they're all good. I did reviews on the old 4Runners as well. So if you haven't watched all those videos yet, I'd recommend that to kind of get all my in the moment thoughts on those vehicles. But as far as now, I'd definitely take a new one if money's not a big differentiating factor. If you don't really care either way as far as the old school stuff or whatever, I'd go for the new one. And Roman says, hope you will get a chance to review the new S5. Yeah, I'll be doing it here. Yeah, this week I'll be reviewing it, and I'll be posting that one up here towards the middle of this month. So stay tuned for that. And let me see, getting back to some other member questions in the super chat. Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, USA bloated vehicles, small vehicles around the world, we buy what they advertise. Large vehicles feed into food consumption in the US. Yeah, I mean, the advertising is certainly a component, but again, it's just really the geography, like I was talking about earlier, that's limiting. I'm sure there's a lot of Europeans that maybe would like to have huge cars, but they can't fit it, on their road, on their driveway, in their garage, their work, whatever the case is, and as far as the food consumption thing there, I mean, I guess maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I guess if you're doing more drive-through stuff, that culture, of throwing everyone in the vehicle and having a vehicle be more of like a mobile home in some ways, for some people, as far as just like spending so much time in the car, maybe, all the roads we have here and the great distances we traverse, maybe there's some of that plays into it. But yeah, highly recommend if any of you, if you haven't been to Europe, just it's very eye-opening and very enlightening to see just how other people live and how people manage to get by with tiny little hatchbacks, just like Americans did in the 80s. But it's so fun to just see how different people live differently. And let me see here. Other member questions. I see Darnell says RAV4 is the modern Prius V, as far as like having something bigger. I think that's probably part of why Toyota doesn't bother. Is you're right. It is. I just feel like Prius V was always, even with like the RAV4 of the time, like Prius V was still a little smaller, kind of. A little more minivan shaped. Like kind of like a mini Sienna. I could see for a new Prius V. I think that could be really fun. But yeah, you're right about RAV4 and everything, all the various, even Corolla Cross has the hybrid now, and all that. So there's so many options. I think that's part of why. Let me see here. And Harsha says the next gen Corolla hybrid should get the new Prius internals, as the current hybrid is so slow. It would also compete better with Civic hybrid. Yeah, I'm almost 100%. Like, I would put a lot of money on the fact that that's the way they're going to go for sure, especially now with Civic. You're right. And also just, that's the old engine. I just feel like they're kind of upgrading everything to the new hybrid stuff. So we'll probably see that. I don't know, how soon Corolla is coming, because it may still have, another year maybe, but it is certainly due. So I don't know, but yeah, I think that's almost entirely guaranteed. That's the way it's going to go. And I see Darnell says majority of women don't want to be in a hatch or sedan. Those cars are very low these days relative to trucks and SUVs. The CVs are the new normal. Yeah, I mean, certainly, especially in like places like Texas where everybody is in a truck. If you want to feel safe, I mean, regardless of gender, if you just want to feel safe in a vehicle, a lot of people want to sit up high and they feel that that's safer, even if, maybe might not actually be safer, but, just the mental aspect of, not being staring up at these giant, vehicles, I think is, part of why we see the giant push towards the crossovers and, those really, exploding in popularity, but also a lot of people buying trucks that never needed or still need trucks or want trucks, but just like want to be on a level playing field with everyone else on the road. Is why you're seeing a lot of that as well. So yeah, but yeah, it's a challenge for sedans, it's a challenge for hatchbacks for sure. And we see Chad also, thank you so much for super chat. He says, love seeing the K trucks in our rural area. Yeah, K trucks are so cool. That's cool. You see some around you. I hardly ever see any on the roads around here. I do see them like in, like farms and stuff, which is cool. But yeah, K trucks are so fun. I'm sure that'd be a fun car review or a fun, vehicle group to review someday is some K trucks. I think, something I was thinking about the other day is I think I need to do more cars that are out of my comfort zone. Like as far as like really bizarre stuff. Because, I think that was going back to like the Top Gear discussion. I think, you know, a lot of like the newer Top Gear stuff is all about like cool stuff, fast stuff, crazy stuff with some humor for sure still. But I think, like part of the magic of Top Gear and Grand Tour as an extension was watching them be miserable and upset and like uncomfortable. And I think I need to do more of that. I think that's something, again, I still want to do like helpful car advice and stuff. But I think with the used stuff, I'm going to really try and find used cars. Again, some that are going to just be popular vehicles that people are searching for, but also if I have the time, I really want to just review stuff that's going to make me be really uncomfortable and and really struggle with, a weird manual or something that's hard to drive or awkward or something. I think that I need to do more, like comedy kind of stuff too, while still doing car reviews. But I think that's kind of, I think what I hope, Top Gear America does in the future is just really tries to do, the comedy thing more so than just, being a rolling car show kind of thing, so we'll see. But yeah, so I think K trucks, I need to do some of those. That'd be so funny to see me struggling with driving a K truck, I'm sure. And let me see. So we're coming up on, we actually just passed 2 hours here, so we'll wrap up. But Chad says there's a streamer with with a lot of hotel wheels that gifts them to strangers with the same car, and I love it. So maybe, I don't know if another word instead of hotel. I don't know if I just misread that or what. But a lot of Hot Wheels, probably is what you're saying. Sorry, it took me a second to figure out the typo there, but that's really fun. I think I've seen reels of that person too, that they just like, leave a little Hot Wheels car if they see the actual car in the parking lot. That's a really fun idea to do. And I'm sure that does very well for them. And let me see. John's asking about ZR1. We discussed ZR1 earlier. Once I end the live here, this will turn into a video on demand. So if you want, we talked about ZR1 pretty early on. And so if you want to go back and watch that, all my discussion on ZR1 is in that. Unfortunately, I haven't reviewed it yet. Hoping to do it at some point here, and I'll keep asking Chevy for it. But hopefully, some point here before it gets cold, that's for sure. And let me see. So Darnos is not trying to gender it, but men may buy a sedan or hatch for the sporty handling at times. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of girls too that like the sporty thing, and like that. Just the extra expression. I think that sedans still and hatches are a little more expressive, can be a little bit sportier, and just there's a lot of perks. And I think companies like Honda, for example, are doing a really good job with like their next generation airbags that they kind of talk about a little bit, that I try to highlight in my videos. Like they say perform better against trucks, and they're trying to engineer these new small cars to perform better and that kind of stuff too, to try and ease people's fears, and also just to actually have it so it holds up better with again, the growing vehicles on the road. Darnell says GR Prius would be sort of cool. I so desperately want them to do a GR Prius. That's another one of the project car ideas. If I ever had the time and the money and the patience and the skill to do a project car, a lot of qualifiers there. But if I ever were to do it, like that's another car I would have loved to build, a GR Prius. And not necessarily like put a GR motor in it, but just like take a Prius Prime to its limit and try and get as much horsepower out of the engine as possible. Try and get as much handling out of it, and I think that could be a really fun little sporty car, because I mean they do as much horsepower as a Civic Si, and so having it have decent tires and suspension to keep up with an Si, I think would actually be a really fun like electrified Si for people, and could be really kind of cool if you want an EV Civic Si, daily driver, with a Prius Prime. I think it'd be really cool. And I think, Chad says, great, chat peeps. Yeah, it's been great hanging out with everyone here. We'll wind down with the last few. Truck and Car Guy says, I did not realize how flat the windshield sits on the new Prius until we had one come through at work. Yeah, it's wild. That's why it's kind of an adjustment to drive them, because it is like insane how low it is. Let me see. Mizzy says, do you think we'll get a new GR Corolla with a nicer interior after the 13th gen Corolla comes out? Also, what are your thoughts on rumored new Celica? So yeah, I think GR Corolla, certainly, if we do get a new version, we'll obviously have some nice improvements to the interior, and that'll help it for sure. Although you'll see, I had a GR Corolla recently. I'm posting my week on it here this month. I think GR Corolla doesn't get enough credit for its interior. Probably an unpopular opinion, but the whole dash is padded. The whole dash is vinyl, like soft, nice stuff with stitching. And I think the Corolla interior is actually way nicer than people give it credit for. And people treat the GR Corolla like it's this penalty box of a car as far as the interior, and I just don't agree. I think the seats are great and comfortable. The interior is nice for that kind of a car. Maybe I'm just, coming out of the years of all the WRXs and, all the other cars that had truly crappy interiors that I mean, GR Corolla is great. We're, I think, really spoiled these days, personally. I think GR Corolla interior is perfectly fine for me. But I think, yeah, the 13th gen will be nicer for sure. As far as Celica, I don't know what to think about Celica. I haven't seen any spy shots. I haven't heard any credible rumors aside from the stuff from the Japanese magazines. I don't know what to think. It seems like, the Toyota executives have said we're doing it, and it's it is happening, but I don't know when it's happening or how they're going to do it. And, I think if you're looking for news on that, you're going to have to probably wait till the Tokyo Auto Salon here at the end of the year. Hopefully there will be, a debut or something said about that. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be anything until the fall, unfortunately. Maybe we'll be surprised and there'll be something else, but I think it's gonna be a little while for that, probably. And Fuchs says, did someone say quirky cars? We did, in fact. Let me see. I see Joe says, so cool to see different vehicles used differently. Kind of hysterical how some think they need bigger vehicles and trucks, and sometimes that's not the case. People use vehicles for a lot more than some think. Oh yeah, for sure. That's another thing you notice if you go to other parts of the world. But yeah, the amount of people I've heard say, oh, well, I need a pickup truck because I might have to move in a few years. Or I'm going to buy a pickup truck because, every once in a while I need to move a mattress for a friend or something. You're going to get 15 MPGs so you can help a friend move instead of just renting a pickup truck at U-Haul for $50 one weekend, anyway. It's just, yeah, everyone's got their justifications, and it's a subjective purchase and a emotional one. And, that's always been the way cars have been. But Yeah, it's funny. Anyway, the viewer says good night. Have a blessed week, everyone. And Harsha says, if cars do get outlawed, we can go to these K cars and K trucks as they're more like four-wheeled bikes than the traditional cars. Yeah, I mean, I don't think cars are going to be outlawed for a long, long time, but if ever, I think even the autonomous stuff is going to keep it going even longer than that. But CP Mitchell's reminding everyone to drink because I said GR Corolla again. You're right. And let me see. So Rishi says Toyota released official renderings of a GR Prius. Check it out. I will. I know they. Thanks for the heads up on that. I know like a year or two ago there was like a GR Prius like race car kind of thing. But maybe there's a newer one. I haven't seen that, so I'll have to check that out. I'll look on their site when I get done here. So thanks for letting me know, Rishi. Thanks for stopping by. And Jordan says, thanks, Matt. 2 lives a week. Yeah, it should be great. I'm looking forward. Like I said, I will not be doing a live stream this Wednesday because I will be traveling. But the following Wednesday I will be doing one, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I'll see you guys next Sunday for the next live stream, and more good videos here this week as well. Stay tuned for. And Omar right here at the end says, I have the current Sierra and Silverados worked out most of their problems from this generation yet. It sounds like some people are still having issues with the V8s, I think, but I think it's been recalled. So I haven't followed it, so I'm not sure. I think they seem to still be selling tons of them and, seem to be fairly good. So any problems out there are probably overblown, probably not that big of a deal, but yeah, I don't know for sure. I haven't checked up on that. And everyone else says, have a good one, Matt. Hope you guys all have a good one as well. Thank you all so much for hanging out again. Have a great week here and good start to your June. Happy Pride Month as well for those of you who celebrate. And yeah, thank you all so much again. And we'll see you guys on the next one. And yeah, let me find my button here. Yeah, take care, everyone.